Welcome to Research Orientation. Much of this course is concerned with the way in which you will conduct your research project to answer your selected research question. It is not unusual at this point to begin thinking about your research design. That is, collecting or sourcing your data and then analyzing it. You may be worrying about what secondary data means, where you might find it, and what would be the most appropriate secondary data to use in your study. But before coming to this central point, we argue in this session that for any researcher who conducts research, there are important layers of the research onion, so to say, which need to be peeled away. Indeed, we are using Saunders's research onion, but we are also making reference to other textbooks as indicated in your course outline. Now, Saunders's research onion is a succession of layers leading to the inner one, data collection and analysis. Those layers are research philosophies, research approaches, strategies, research choices, time horizons, and finally techniques and procedures. So data collection and data analysis techniques. Different textbooks will refer to these layers using various labels. For the purpose of this course, we are going to use by and large Saunders's labels, but also we are going to refer to research orientation as being Saunders's outer layers, the research philosophy and research approaches. Earlier in this course, you've learned quite a bit about the difference between inductive and deductive research. We are not going to focus on it today, but link it with research philosophies. What we decide to investigate, as well as how we go about investigating, is significantly influenced by our research orientation, by our basic belief and assumption about A, the nature of the world, which we will call ontology, and B, the process through which our knowledge of this world can be developed. And we will refer to this as epistemology. In essence, these assumptions underpin our research design, our research choices, which ultimately result in our choosing one research method over another. The practical importance of being aware of one's research orientation is that the researcher needs to be able to defend their research design choices, and they would be able to do that by referring to the outer layers of Saunders's famous research onion. The diagram on the slide presents you with 4 research philosophies. There are a few more than 4 in reality, but the 4 presented on the slide are the ones mostly met in a student dissertation. Moreover, looking at our past students' dissertations, we would be able to narrow down the choice of research philosophies to 3, positivism and interpretivism. The 2 of them amount for about 95% of our students' dissertations, and pragmatism, the remaining 5%. Very rarely or never is realism adopted by a student, but if you think it may be realism what you are likely to adopt, you will find plenty of content about it in your research method textbooks. To sum up what research orientation means, it is the researcher's personal paradigm on issues of ontology and epistemology. Again, ontology refers to the nature of the phenomenon under study, and epistemology, the process through which we, as researchers, are able to get to understand that phenomenon. More simply stated, it is the way the researcher collects and analyzes his data or her data, reports on their results, and generally conducts his or her research reflecting largely his or her basic beliefs about the nature of the world and the process through which this world or this phenomenon can be studied and understood. And while this session will not focus too much on the research approaches of inductivism and deductivism, these are closely interrelated to research philosophies in the sense that most positivist research tends to take a deductive approach and most interpretativist research tends to follow an inductive logic. Perhaps the best way to understand research philosophies is by focusing on the extremes. So let's start with extreme positivism and then contrast that with extreme interpretativism. Positivism represents the position according to which social entities exist in reality external to the social actors concerned with their existence. So, for example, if you are interested in trust in supply chains and you are a positivist, then you would assume trust to exist external to the organizations in the supply chain that you are looking at, that you're studying. That trust in supply chains would be the same regardless of the nature of the organizations or the exact configuration of those networks. So this is an example of a phenomenon existing in an external reality to the human interaction taking place in its context. Extreme positivists view the social world as a concrete structure, as an objective truth. They therefore see it as their mission to understand and map out this concrete social structure. Knowledge of the social world implies that sort of understanding. Epistemologically, they believe in the importance of studying the nature of relationships among the elements constituting that structure. If you remember in our introduction to research, when we looked at that theory of motivation and those many concepts and variables linking within that theory, a theory such as that one is representative of the logical structure of a positivist research philosophy. Positivists indeed concern themselves with knowledge which is objective, which specifies the precise nature of laws, regularities, patterns, relationships measured in terms of social facts. Indeed, the value of positivism is also its major flaw in that positivists assume a value-free way of undertaking research, and this can be considered to be highly unrealistic when the researcher himself or herself cannot be entirely value-free. Interpretivism tackles some of the criticism to which positivists are exposed by arguing that the social world is far too complex to lend itself to theorizing by definite laws, that the social world is unlike the natural world, therefore perhaps not governed by any simple or exact laws. Therefore, this paradigm differentiates social sciences from the physical sciences. Those researchers are critical of positivism, arguing that rich insights into this complex social world are lost if such complexity is reduced entirely to a series of law-like generalizations. If you sympathize with such a view, your research philosophy is likely to be nearer to that of a subjectivist. Interpretivism represents the view according to which social phenomena are created from the perceptions and consequent actions of social actors. Therefore, social actors do not live independent of the phenomena in which they are placed. Therefore, knowledge of the social world is simply an understanding of the individual's arbitrary personal perception of the world. Therefore, the positivists' idea of a value-free science is indeed very remote from interpretivism. If ontologically the social world is no more than our conceptions of this world, the epistemology that interpretivists embrace emphasizes the importance of understanding these processes, the processes through which human beings give meaning to the world. Therefore, it's less about understanding the phenomenon outside or independent from the way in which the phenomenon is perceived by people enacting it. From the point of view of the data utilized by interpretativists, they prefer approaches that can capture these individually enacted meanings of the world. What brings these extreme philosophical positions in social science is an analysis framework consisting of ontology and epistemology. If you wish to consult more literature and try to get more insight about these two, here is a list of relevant literature. On these two levels, let's try to see positivism and interpretivism in a mirror. From an ontology point of view, positivists believe in external and objective reality independent of social actors, whereas interpretativists believe that this reality is nothing but socially constructed, subjective, and may change, or there may be multiple realities depending on who's looking at them. From an epistemological perspective, positivists believe that only observable phenomena can provide credible data, facts. They believe in facts. They also believe in causality and generalization and reducing phenomena to its simplest elements. Meanwhile, interpretativists believe in subjective meanings of social phenomena. Indeed, they believe these phenomena do not exist outside their social context. Therefore, interpretativists focus upon the details of the situation, the reality behind these details, and emphasize subjective meanings motivating actions. Their emphasis, therefore, is not on the actions themselves, but on the meanings held by individuals undertaking the actions. In terms of the data collection techniques most often used, positivists tend to favor highly structured tools, large samples, measurement, and generally quantitative data. But occasionally, by exception, they can use qualitative data as well. Whereas interpretativists tend to use small samples, in-depth investigations, and generally tend to employ qualitative data. And where they may come across quantitative data, they tend to interpret that data in a qualitative way. It is unavoidable that the debate on ontology and epistemology discussed has a competitive ring. The debate is often framed in terms of a choice between one extreme or the other. Even if you accept that questions of method are secondary to questions of ontology and epistemology, you would still be excused for thinking that choosing between one position and the other is somewhat unrealistic in practice. This is particularly the case if the methods you wish to employ are mixed methods, both qualitative and quantitative, and the logic in which you employ them is both deductive and inductive. If this is your view, then you would be adopting a third way, the position of the pragmatist. Pragmatism argues that the most important determinant of the ontology and epistemology you adopt is the research question. One may be more appropriate than the other for answering particular questions. Moreover, if the research question does not suggest unambiguously that either a positivist or interpretativist philosophy is adopted, this confirms the pragmatist's view that it is perfectly possible to work with variations in your ontology and epistemology. Indeed, mixed methods research are rather common, and although very often it is one philosophy driving the use of the unusual methods. So for example, it may be an interpretativist philosophy driving the use of quantitative methods through a qualitative analysis of those figures and numbers. However, there are cases when there is truly no particular driver and the mixed methods are used in a pragmatic rather than philosophically grounded fashion. You could look at it as a blank check, but pragmatism doesn't suit all types of research. And indeed, more often than not, you will find yourself in one of the extreme camps, interpretivism or positivism. But occasionally, and take the advice of your tutor and later on of your dissertation supervisor, pragmatism is appropriate.